In Acadiana's morning news, and as promised this morning, Lafayette Parish Sheriff Mark Garber joining us in studio. Now, Chad Romero is sitting in for a guy who went to sit home on his sofa.
He's
Rob
sitting at home.
Kirkpatrick
That's
guy?
right. He's just sitting at home.
I'm
doing all the work.
I'm
doing everything.
We make him work all the time. We're mean to him.
Yep.
And so we're like, Rob, you probably deserve a little time off. Sit on the sofa, do nothing. So, right, he's probably napping.
Think he's drinking yet?
Probably. You know, I would
Monday
think so.
morning it seems like a great time to have.
I think it is.
Cold beer.
You know, yeah. Okay, that sounds wrong.
Okay,
it's Monday morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sheriff.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to talk with you about a variety of different things about this proposed tax idea. Okay, so let's get started on questions that everyone seems to have and what we're discussing. Okay, so first off, if the voters, when they go to the polls this Saturday, if they decide that they want to do this and they want to approve this, how basically is it going to work? The way that you have it structured on the ballot. Tell us, if the voters approve it, what happens from that point on?
What happens is the existing 1 cent tax that is in the unincorporated parts of the parish goes away and is replaced by a parish-wide half-cent tax. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. And that tax goes forward. It's got a food and drug exclusion, and it becomes effective, I believe, in April of next year is when it would start going into effect. So it does not tax you when you go to the grocery store, and it does not tax you at the pharmacy. But, you know, if you go to a restaurant, it's discretionary spending. My appreciation is that would apply. And the reason that we structured it that way is to capture the income from all of those people who use our community. You think about Lafayette.
That's why they call us the hub city.
Thank
Everybody
you.
comes here.
Right. We've been called that since the 1950s, give or take. And we're unique compared to the parishes that surround us because the surrounding parishes come here in large part to eat out, to Christmas shop, things like that. Man, the traffic this weekend was ridiculous. And
let's get some of that money.
Right. So what I'm trying to do is capture to address the needs of security in this parish. Capture the revenue from everyone who uses our community, not just the property owners. You know, the property owners in this parish, the businesses and the homeowners already have enough on them. Okay, they already pay their share to support the infrastructure. I want to take a little bit from everybody and to put it in perspective, okay, if you spend $500 a month on goods that are taxable by this, okay, which is not your groceries and it's not your prescription medication, that's $2.50 that you're going to contribute towards this tax. Right. It's a half-cent sales tax. So, you know, a lot of people are, you know, justifiably so alarmed by the thought of additional taxes. But when you step back and look at it, what are we going to get for this? We're going to get increased security across the parish. Revenue is going to be shared with every agency in the parish. And it's such a small impact on you, yet it's one of our most important needs. When you look at basic human needs, what's at the top of it? Security,
you want to know
right?
you're safe. Yeah.
When you're not safe, that is suddenly your biggest problem. When your family's not safe, that is your number one concern. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what kind of career you're having, what kind of future you have in store for you. If you're threatened, then that's it.
So when you came into office and you looked around at this, how did you get the idea for this, and what were the real needs? I mean, is it you need more people, more bodies out there? You just need more for infrastructure? Was there stuff that the prior administration maybe had that still needs to be funded? Break it down for us about what you really saw. I want to
finish doing what the prior administration started. And the previous administration did a great job at building, I guess, a footprint for the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office. We, you know, affect the entire region in law enforcement. We host and actually now own the Acadiana Law Enforcement Area Training Academy, which trains police officers and sheriff's deputies from all over this region. So we influence what kind of police product is put out there. And I'd say that we've upped the game considerably as far as our standards there at Alita. Lafayette Sheriff's Office sets the tone in so many other areas as well, just across the board for our law enforcement performance. So I want to give accolades to the prior administration for what they started. But, you know, for example, we have a shell out at the Public Safety Center out there on Willow Street, which is incomplete. Okay, and it cost about $400,000 to complete that shell, and then I could house 200 more prisoners or conduct other operations out of it. But right now it's just an empty frame of a building with a roof on it, and it's got some plumbing in the concrete.
Right.
I need to finish that, but I cannot afford to finish it. I owe about $18 million on that complex. I pay $545,000 in interest on that public safety complex every year. I want that debt to go away. So, I've been criticized by some conservative commentators saying, well, that's going to be paid off eventually. Well, I don't think it's right for me to pay that much interest with your tax dollars if I can avoid doing it. And you asked a great question a while ago. What else am I going to do with it? We need to put additional manpower on the streets now.
So when you base it, is that based on population?
It's based on the population and needs of this parish. You look at, we're about 260,000 in Lafayette Parish, and growing very, very rapidly in Youngsville and Broussard. And why do people come here? Why do these young families move to Lafayette Parish? I submit to you that it's because of the infrastructure that we offer. People come here for good schools and good security. That's the first thing you think of when you have a family and you're starting out and you decide you're going to move from wherever, the surrounding areas into Lafayette. You're coming here for the convenience, and the most important thing to you with a young family is security. The most important thing to you as you get older is security. We get judged as a community based on our security situation, based on our crime rates.
So Sheriff Mark Garber is joining us. We're talking about the issue that's on the ballot this weekend, the tax issue. One of the other questions that people often will ask us is, okay, let's talk about Lafayette Police, and let's talk about the other areas, the revenue sharing. Okay, how's this going to be done? What paperwork have you filed? What paperwork can you show? Tell us a little bit more about that. And let's start with Lafayette. Okay, Lafayette PD. Is it going to be a relationship where they are going to get money? How will that work?
Absolutely. That's available, and that deal's been on the table for the mayor-president to accept. What I have is I filed a resolution, and I brought a copy of it so you can keep. This was recorded with the clerk of court in Lafayette Parish on November 16th. And I believe it's Section 1, Covenant with Voters. I go through, this is essentially what I'm going to do with the money. And the first paragraph, the first bullet point here, talks about the Lafayette City Police. And I'm offering to supplement the salaries of the chief and the assistant chief at $500 per month. And I'm offering to supplement the salary of each Lafayette police officer at $350 a month. So that works out to well over $4,000 a year in a pay raise. It's a very, very big pay raise because they've told us that, look, we're having trouble retaining people. We lose them to the state police and so on.
Other organizations.
Right, right. Or, and I did an either or after discussions with the mayor president. We came up with an alternative solution in case they wanted to pursue it of fully funding 20 additional police officer positions. And when I say fully funding that, I said, look, Mayor, I'll buy the police car for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I'll buy the body camera.
The whole bit of everything. So you've got this, and you got this on record, but you know how people are these days. They always have questions. So my next question is, why can people trust you, Sheriff? I mean, why should they go for this? And will there be follow through? You've got it on paper, but people want that personal guarantee.
Well, I've signed my name to this. At the very end of this covenant, you see that I've signed it, and I've signed it on behalf of myself and of the law enforcement district, so it transcends my administration. One of the questions that I've heard most often is, well, Sheriff, what if you get hit by a bus and you're no longer with us?
Great question.
So, say my chief deputy steps in or eventually we have another election and somebody else that we don't even know is sheriff. They would have to basically amend this resolution on behalf of the law enforcement district and take money away from law enforcement. Politically, it's an impossible move to make.
Right.
It's completely impossible move to make that politically. That's about as good of a guarantee as you can get in this day and time.
Acadiana's Morning News. We continue our conversation this morning with Lafayette Parish Sheriff Mark Garber, asking questions that people ask us all the time. Email us, text us. What about this? What about that? Etc. Sheriff, thanks for joining us this morning, taking some time. Okay, we've got so many more questions. We talked a little bit about if this tax were to pass, how it would benefit Lafayette Police. What about the other agencies within Lafayette Parish?
Well, good question. In my covenant, you'll see that I've listed each agency. And I've listed that I will supplement the salaries of the chief and the assistant chief as well as each officer in a specified amount throughout the parish. And that includes University of Lafayette Police Department. Every town, Dusson, Broussard, Carencro, Youngsville, will all receive a direct supplement to their pay. And that can come at the end of the year at the city council and the chief's option. And that can be a quid pro quo for staying the entire year as opposed to leaving for another agency.
Yeah.
And that was actually developed at the suggestion of one of the local chiefs. When I was at the early stages of this, he called me up one morning and he said, look, I don't know if you'd go for this, Sheriff, but this is a suggestion. It's done in Acadia Parish. It's been done for well over 20 years through intergovernmental agreements. And, when I started thinking about it, I said, yeah, I have heard something about that. What a great idea, because in addition to the support that we provide 24/7 to all of these agencies, including the City of Lafayette PD, we can give them some direct sharing. And what happened, it's a good segue to talk about the confusion that arose with the union. The one thing that I was incorrect about, I am sorry that I was incorrect. I can't know everything at once.
Right.
All right. Even though I do have a law degree, you're not imbued with the knowledge.
Right.
Right. Not a computer.
You're not imbued with the knowledge of every law as soon as you get a law degree. I knew that we could share because having conversations with Jerry Osborne, who is the premier bond attorney in the state of Louisiana. In fact, the same bond attorney that the Lafayette Consolidated Government uses when they need to borrow money. He said, yeah, you absolutely can share this revenue. It's been done in St. Landry Parish. It's been done in Acadia Parish. But you have to share it for what I found out later is you can't share an undivided lump sum. In other words, I can't say, yeah, I'm going to give you half of the taxes.
Right.
And just give you a lump sum.
Right.
The law requires that it be for a specific purpose in furtherance of the purposes of the law enforcement district. So it furthers my purposes as the chief of this law enforcement district, which is the entire parish of Lafayette, to retain qualified police officers in every single one of these departments, because together we're stronger than the sum of our individual parts. Something I say to my staff all the time. It goes that way as well for law enforcement in this parish. I benefit as sheriff from having a strong Youngsville Police Department, from having a strong Lafayette Police Department, and they benefit from having a strong sheriff's office. So this is my way of giving directly back to the city councils and to the citizens of each town that supports this tax.
So let me ask you this, though. There's a lot of criticism because it's not like a library tax or the public health tax where, it's for 10 years and then you have to vote on a renewal.
Yeah,
I mean, this is open-ended.
Thank you for bringing that up.
So is that correct? Is that not a correct assessment?
Well, what the narrative that's being put out by the people who love to use the word in perpetuity. Okay, this tax is in perpetuity. There's some commentators who just love saying that word. I think that they're deliberately not telling you about my provision that's in writing in my covenant where I reduce my taxes by 1/3 on the property side of it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking revenue that comes in from all over the place. Okay, all the people who come in and use this community. And once I reach my benchmarks, which I've laid out in my covenant, then I start giving back to the property owners, the homeowners and the business owners that form the backbone of our community. I think it's an innovative idea. It hadn't been done before in this area, and I'm very proud that I came up with it. And I know that it doesn't fit the narrative of the anti-tax commentators who have been critical of this, but the truth has to come out. They need to tell the public the whole story when they're talking about this tax, not just half the story about the tax existing in perpetuity.
But the tax will go on. It's not like in 10 years we have to go back and renew it.
Well,
if someone wanted to take this off the books, they would have to come up with a new tax or a new resolution to take it off the books.
Right. And we won't need to take this off the books because I'm going to be giving back money by reducing my property millage. You see I've got an item in my resolution that says I'm going to have a 1-year emergency fund balance built up. Okay, whatever my budget is, that's the what I want to carry in my in my account. I've been criticized saying, well, the rule of thumb, you can have a 60-day balance or operating money for 60 days. What if we get devastated by a flood or a hurricane? What if our community is just we get our block knocked off? We need those services to continue at a high level more than ever while this community rebuilds. I'm being responsible. I'm thinking ahead. I'm preparing for the future. And this also, having that kind of fund balance, enables me to deal with the ups and downs and fluctuations in sales tax. One of the justified criticisms that some other government officials brought up to me, they said, Sheriff, this is a pretty risky move you're doing. You're going to reduce your property millage, which is a very steady,
yes, it is,
dependable source of income.
Right.
and you're going to be more dependent on sales tax revenue. Well, I submit that if I have this fund balance, I can deal with the ups and downs, and I have enough time to adjust and go to the voters and say, hey, our economy's been decimated. If that would even happen. I don't think that's going to happen in the foreseeable future.
You are asking for a leap of faith, though, if people go and vote on this, because it is a trust issue. Because people, for years in Louisiana, I mean, let's face it, it comes down to trust. But you did go to the clerk of court's office. You do have this covenant, if you will. So, and elected officials don't do that, typically.
Tell me an example. Find me where this has been done before.
So, okay, and that is true. Right? Because we haven't seen this before. But what if you don't hold up on your end of the bargain? What would you expect the public to do?
Well, it says in section, I believe, 1, where it's covenant with the voters, or it's and also at the end, it says that this is a contract with the voters of Lafayette Parish. I can be brought into district court here by any taxpayer and held accountable for my promises that I'm putting in that covenant. That is built into the resolution that I signed my name to. That is prima facie evidence. In other words, I can be put up on the stand and questioned very, very easily in a court of law in this parish. I have nowhere to hide.
Do you think, though, that people are going to be willing to take a leap of faith? People feel like all the time, and this has been a sentiment for at least 15 years, longer perhaps, that they just get railroaded by taxes. They get railroaded, and they're saying, okay, is he going to spend like a drunken sailor? I mean, are you going to be a real good steward of this money, or are you going to use it for things that you think may work?
Well, look at what I've done. Look at what I've done with the resources I have so far. Look at the number of cars that you see on the road. I don't have any more money than my predecessor did. In 2015, Sheriff Newstrom had to borrow money to make it to the end of the year. He had to borrow $4 million to make payroll to the end of the year. I've had to borrow money to make it to the end of the year every year after that. Yet, despite that, I seem to have, upped the profile of the sheriff's office. I did that by eliminating middle management positions. I did that by cutting cost in other areas and trimming these outside programs. So you feel like
you cut some waste?
I've cut a tremendous amount of expenditures, let's say. I don't want to be even indirectly disparaging to the prior administration.
Oh, no, of course not.
So
you just do things differently. Your philosophy, your outlook is different.
What I've done, it can be best summed up as I've focused the resources on our basic fundamental responsibilities. What are the responsibilities of the sheriff? To protect and serve the parish, with law enforcement services. My jurisdiction is every square inch of this parish. It's where we're sitting right now in the city of Lafayette is my jurisdiction. We have primary responsibility for law enforcement. If the Lafayette City Police are unable to fulfill their duties, that falls on me as the sheriff. And oftentimes it doesn't make the news at all, but we're backing every agency up, or we completely take over an investigation for an agency at their request, because we have those superior resources.
But do you get some criticism, though, from law enforcement officers, whether it's Lafayette PD or Broussard PD or Youngsville PD? Did they have concerns, and have they come to you with concerns about whether or not this is really going to work?
No. I've heard a small pocket of criticism from an organization. It's not the Lafayette Police Department, but there's a union organization that has voiced some criticism, but they've been found to be not credible. 2 news agencies have reported that they're not credible, so I don't have any real concerns about them at all. I think that does not reflect the views of the officers and the chain of command of the Lafayette Police Department.
What do you think's been wrong about the dialogue that has been out there thus far? I mean, what do you think that we talked about some of the criticisms, some of the things that you say, some critics have wrong?
Well, they, saying that there's no sunset provision is extremely misleading to the public. I think
because you say that's not the whole story.
That's basically not the whole story. That is very, very, very misleading. I heard on this radio station, I heard someone commenting about some information they had received comparing us to East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. And they said they had received this from law enforcement people who had done their homework. It's really a shame, that it's irresponsible journalism to report what was reported, that we would have a budget equivalent to East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. I've got some documents here for you. Last year, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff borrowed $30 million to make it to the end of the year. So their budget of $91 million is actually $30 million higher. So they're a $120 million budget. So they're comparing me to East Baton Rouge and saying that this is a well thought out, they did their homework. People need to do their homework. I'm going to hand you this document right here.
And we'll put that as part of the story, as part of the dialogue.
Completely, the whole argument completely lacks credibility. So what I want your listeners to understand is we're more like Calcasieu Parish. Lake Charles is roughly equivalent to Lafayette, especially with the influx of workers and the natural gas, plants that are just exploding over there. We're very close in population to Calcasieu Parish. Their budget is $90,522,000. The sheriff's office has responsibility, whether it's Calcasieu Parish or Lafayette Parish. We have responsibility parish-wide. The corrections part of my budget, it takes up most of my budget. To safely and humanely have care, custody, and control of people is tremendously expensive. And the little tiny bit that I get from consolidated government goes to fixing the elevators and air handlers and things like that. And what I'm referring to is the property millage. So I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but compare us to Calcasieu Parish, $90 million budget. I would approach a $90 million budget gross. But once you back out the debt repayment, once you back out the property tax reduction, I'm more like about in the low 70s when you factor in the revenue sharing and so forth.
What do you want to leave people with? Because we're getting close to having to wrap up due to time this morning. We're going to obviously have all of this.
I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay here all morning. We're just going to
Chad,
talk.
He's the sheriff.
I'm
out.
Yeah, you're out. He's going to sit in the chair. To kind of wrap it up, what do you want people to do? We've got a few more days here before the election on Saturday. If people want more information, if you think that people might be misled by anything, how would you sum it up?
Well, we have a Facebook page called Lafayette Law Enforcement. Is that correct, John? Okay. And they can go there and see the information laid out. That's got all of our posts on it. And also, just do your homework for real. Okay. Don't listen to people with an agenda, because there's commentators out there who have an agenda that they want to fight taxes no matter what. Yet those same people do not have a plan for when I have to cut 105 jobs and services go down. They're not going to be there to protect you. Those people want to tell you to vote against this tax, but they have no responsibility to protect and serve the public. They're pushing their agenda. They're very myopic in their view, and they're not thinking about your children. They're not thinking about your safety as you go about your business and live your life.
All right. Lafayette Parish Sheriff Mark Garber, thank you for answering our questions this morning. Everybody will be able to have that up at our website a little bit later on this morning. And, of course, we'll have pictures of all of the documents as well. Sir, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate
yes, ma'am.
it. Now, on December the 8th, everybody will have their own decision to make. Obviously, there's some other things on the ballot, too. There are a lot of different resources in our town as far as news services and a lot of different areas where you can look at information. So we suggest that you do that as well. And we always tell you that, too. And if you're looking for the stuff on KPEL from today's interview, it'll be at kpel965.com and on our Facebook page.